In this tutorial, we're going to talk about return types. So from the previous example that we had in the previous tutorial, you can see that we were able to invoke a method called method1 and pass in an argument of data type int. And the method was able to pick that argument x and make use of it in the print line statement. Simple and straightforward, huh? Now in this particular tutorial, what we're going to do is that we're going to declare a method that is going to return something apart from taking in an argument. So here in this method, we are going to declare a public static int method 2, and method 2 is going to take as its argument a car. Let's say car C. So let me explain this. As you can see, the methods we've been declaring in the previous examples, we've been using void as our return type. And I told you before that void means nothing. So when the method is not meant to return anything, we use void as the method's return type. So in this particular example here, we are using an int as method 2's return type. That means that method 2 must return an int. Alright, let's make method 2 to spit out something. So we're going to state here that the value of method 2's argument is the value of method 2's argument is, then we're going to concatenate that with C. Now, assuming we attempt to compile this program, it's not going to compile because we haven't inserted the return statement. We have not returned what this method was meant to return, which is an integer. So let's clear the screen and try compiling example1.java. I'm going to see we're going to have a compilation error at line 18. Now at line 18 you can see it says missing return statement. Now not really like the curly bracket here has a problem, it's just that we didn't include a return statement in the end of our method 2. So because of that, we have this compilation error that at line 18, which is the end of method 2, we have a missing return statement. So in order to fix this program, we're going to have to include the missing return statement. So since this method has been declared to return an int, then we should return a number. Let's say we can simply just say return 5, which is an int. So let's try recompiling the program. Here we go. So you can see it compiled. However, we haven't invoked method 2 in the main method. So let's invoke method 2 in the main method. As I told you in the previous tutorial, we need to pass in an argument to method 2 because method 2 has been declared to take in an argument of data type character. You cannot simply pass in an x. Oh, sorry, this x that we declared here, because x is an int. So, and even if we declared an integer, let's say c to be equal to let's say 75, that's not going to work because c is an int, not a character. So in order for let's check it out anyway. Let's see whether this is gonna compile. Of course it's not gonna compile. We try to compile, and then you can see we have an error at line 9. The error at line 9, which is where we're invoking the method 2, the error at line 9 says that we have an incompatible types, possible lossy conversion from int to char. That's what is being said here. It's pointing to the invocation of method 2 passing the variable c, which is an int. So as you can see, the rule is that whenever you declare a method to take in a particular data type, then you must pass in that specific data type when you are invoking the method as the method's argument. Okay, so in order to correct this error, we need to declare C as a car. I could even change the variable name and call it my car, and then assign it a value. Of course, the character takes only one character value. Let's assign it an @ symbol, and then we can pass in my car as the argument of method 2. Now method 2 is going to take the my car argument and store it in a variable called C. This is going to work irrespective of the fact that the variable name for the argument is not the same as the argument that's been passed in when we were invoking method 2 in the main method. I hope you understand that. Okay, let me repeat this again. You do not have to pass in the same variable name when you are invoking the method as the same name of the argument that was declared in the method. For example, method 1, we had an argument called x as an int, and we passed in a variable called x. That worked, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to pass in exactly the same variable name. You could have well declared my car as a variable and then pass it as an argument to method 2, even if method 2's argument variable name is C. And this is gonna work. So let's save this and check it out and see if it's gonna compile. So I'm gonna clear the screen, then I try to compile, and you can see it compiled, and then we can run the program, and you can see the value of method 2's argument is @ symbol. However, method 2 has returned a value 5, and we haven't made use of that value. So let's make use of the value. Whenever a method is returning a value, you can retrieve the value by declaring a variable. In this case, method 2 is going to return an int, so we need to declare an int. Let's call this int my int to be equal to method 2. So what this means is that when we invoke method 2, it's going to return an int which we are going to store in this variable called my int, and then we can split out the variable, and you're going to see that it's going to be the same as the variable that was returned by method 2. Here we go. So you can say the value of the variable, or the value of the value returned by method 2 is, then we're going to concatenate it with my int. Okay, so let's recompile. So I'm going to clear the screen, compile, hit compile, then I run the program, and you can see the value returned by method 2 is 5. That's because it was declared in method 2 to return 5 as the return value. As you can see, 5 is an int. It's also possible for us to have declared a variable, let's say int my var to be equal to 5, and we can now pass in my var as the return value of the method 2. So that's gonna work as well. Let's try to recompile it and see what we have. So again, I recompile with Java example 1, the Java and the Java example 1, and you can see the value returned by method 2 is 5. Now I want you to note that the particular data type that is returned by a particular method must not be the same as the data type that the method is taking as its argument. As you can see in this example, that method 2 is returning an int, but it takes as its argument a car. Okay, another example I'd like to show you is a method that is going to return a boolean. So this method, let's call it method 3, is going to take in as its argument a float. Let's call this sal as its argument, and we can like say the system.out.print line the value of method 3's argument is, then we are gonna concatenate it with sal, and then we can say return true. Oops. So let's invoke method 3 inside the main method. So in order for us to invoke method 3, we can retrieve the value of method 3 by declaring a boolean. Let's call this my bool to be equal to method 3. And as you can see, method 3 requires a float as its argument, and we can pass in a float as the argument to method 3. This time around, I'm going to use a variable as the argument that is going to be passed to the method being invoked. Instead, I'm going to pass in a literal number. So we can say 3.4175, and that's going to be the argument of method 3. However, we have to put the f to certify that that value is a float, because method 3 requires a float. Then let's see what method 3 returns. So if we say system.out.print line the value returned by method 3 is, let's concatenate my bool. So let's check it out. So I'm gonna come over to the command prompt and let's clear the screen and then recompile Java example 1 to Java. Then let's run Java example 1. So you can see the value of method 3's argument is 3.4175. That's coming from the value that we passed into method 3, and when it entered method 3 was invoked, and method 3 spit out this, which included the value, and then returned true. Now back to the main method, you can see that method 3 returns a boolean that we're gonna store in my bool, and then we can simply say system.out.print line the value returned by method 3 is my bool. So that's how to pass in arguments and get return types to methods. So I hope you found this informative, and thanks for viewing.